Welcome, welcome. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech Elohim
Olam,
asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav
Kitchanu Mitzvotav
v'tzivanu
Tzivanu
la'asok b'divrei
Divrei
Torah.
Torah.
All right. So here we are. We're doing, that verse in verse 5, chapter 12, where it talks how Abram and Sarah took the souls that they had made, right? They had made in Haran. So Asher Asu. Amar Reish Lakish, said Reish Lakish. So Reish Lakish, his full name is Shimon ben Lakish. There is a wonderful story about him, that he was actually a bandit initially, and Rabbi Yochanan came across him, and between one thing and another, Rabbi Yochanan basically turned him around, and he, in fact, became such a great scholar. Reish Lakish became so great that he and Rabbi Yochanan are actually, they disagree with one another. They're in the Talmud. They're interlocutors throughout the Talmud. And there's more to this story than just this, but I do want you to recognize this name, Reish Lakish. He is an Amora. That is to say, he lived in the generation following the editing of the Mishnah, the creation of the Mishnah in the year 200, and he's one of those rabbis who are called Amoraim and were in the generations that followed, the few generations that followed the creation of the Mishnah. So, at any rate, here's a quote from him: "Kol hamelamed et ben chaveiro Torah." Anyone who teaches the son of his companion Torah. Ma'aleh alav hakatuv keilu asa'o. Scripture accords him as if he had actually made him, as if he'd made this child, even though he's not his parent, but as his teacher of Torah, he finishes him, so to speak. We'll see that the word asa can also mean, and we'll see this in the, I believe, in the Torah T'mimah, right? Shine'emar, as it says, ve'et hanefesh asher asu, because there in the verse it says, and the souls which they had asud, they had made. And we understand, of course, that they had turned these people who had been pagans, they became believers in the one God. This is from Sanhedrin, page 99b. Let's take a look at this. Starts down here at the bottom. Nismach al hamevu'ar kan b'midrash Rabbah. This particular comment is based on what is clarified here in Midrash Rabbah. Midrash Rabbah is something that it's a midrash that follows the organization and the order of the Torah. And so there's a chapter in the Midrash Rabbah on Lech, and where they analyze various verses. And what does it say in Midrash Rabbah? Let's see, let's make sure. Okay, all right. So here's what goes on to say. The parich. So parich means that there's a contradiction that they raise, right? Vaha. Wait a second, it's saying. Im mitkanshin kol ba'eolam livro. If the entire population of the world, right, came, gathered together, used their combined intelligence, right, and abilities, livro afilu litush echad, even to create one, I'm going to say, mosquito. If they came to create an insect like a mosquito, and yicholim, right, lizrok bo neshama, they wouldn't be able to give it life. They wouldn't be able to throw into it literally a neshama, a soul. So, in other words, you know, it's saying, wait a second, this verse in the Torah, it says they made these souls, and he's saying, but the entire population couldn't even make a mosquito. What do you mean? The at amart, and you're saying here, the et hanefesh asher asu, right? Asher asu. You're saying here in the Torah, the souls that they made. If the entire population of the world couldn't create a mosquito, how are Abram and Sarah making souls? How are they doing that? Ella. So it's saying it doesn't mean that. It's doing this in a rhetorical way. It's using a rhetorical style to point out what the Torah actually means. Ella, but Elu Hageirim Shegairu. It's talking about, this is in the Midrash Rabbah that's saying this. These are the proselytes that they converted. All right? That's what it means. When it says hanefesh asher asu, the Torah is saying actually that these are the people who also uh, came on to the belief in one God. Imkain, right? And if this is the case, this is like a little Talmudic argument we're having within the Midrash Rabbah. Okay, there's a back and forth. Okay, so it's saying fine. That's you're saying that Asher Asu really means that Shegairu, right? That they converted. Imkain, if that's the case, Shegairu Hava Le'lemar. It should have said in the Torah, Shegairu, that they converted. Lememar. That's Havalei Lelemar. It should have said that. Umat Talmud Lomar Asher Asu. So in this case, why does it say Asher Asu? If that's what it means, why does it say Asher Asu? Why does it use that verb which means they made? Ela lemalamecha. This is all in the Midrash Rabbah, right? But this is to teach you. Shekol mi shemekarev et haoved kochavim umegairo. That anyone who brings an idolater, a star worshiper, close, draws them close, umegairo, and helps them to convert away from the paganism. Bayamim hakodmanim. So there's obviously a little parenthetical statement. It says, Bayamim hakadmonim uvemakomot sheutar al pi hamalchut. It's saying in those earlier days and in the place where the the sovereignty, right, that is the government, right, permitted such things, right, because Torah T'mimah is very aware that in his own times, any Jew who converted someone away from Christianity in this case, okay, and that is an opinion as to what Christianity is, but whatever the local religion was, okay. I'm not here to suggest that I agree that Christianity is idolatry. I don't think it is, but at any rate, that's the parenthetical statement because it's saying, here it's suggesting this is a very good thing to do, right? Or at least it's a thing one can do, right? But in the time of Torah T'mimah, and he's aware of history as well, Jews could get killed for doing such things. So, finishing the parenthesis, Ki'ilu bra'o, it's as if he actually created him. Ad kan lashono, that is the end of the quote from the Midrash Rabbah. But he goes on to say, Adain sarich pi'ur. But he says, you still need to explain, Lama lo amar asher bar'u, that if you're going to say, according to the Midrash Rabbah, it's as if they created them, right? That's not what it says. It says asher asu, right? So then it says, you still are going to have to say, why didn't it say which they created in that verse? Ve'efshar lomar, and one could say, mishum de lashon asiya. The reason is that the language, the expression asiya, this particular word, right, asiya, which generally means to make, more ba'alma al tikun adavar. This word asa also refers simply to the perfection of something, right, to the completion of something, to the improvement of something. That's the idea of tikkun, right? That's what it talks about exactly. Where do we get such a notion? Kamoshe Katov Rosh Parshat Tetzai, as it says at the beginning of Parsha Ki Tetzai in Deuteronomy. We just actually read that a couple of weeks ago. right? And there it talks about the woman taken in warfare, the pagan woman who's taken in a battle, right? And it says about her, he has to bring her home and allow her a month in which to go through certain process and mourn her parents, etc. And in that context, it says, "Va'asta et sipor neha." It says she should make. There's the word asa. There's the root asa, to make her nails, right? Ukamosha katav Rashi, and as Rashi explains there, Rosh Perek Bereshit Pasuk Vayas Elohim et Harakia. Rashi brings another example where the word is asa. There's the root, where it says, the verse says, God made the firmament, the rakia, v'lachein tafaskan. So he's saying that, in other words, there's an understanding that she should either trim her nails or that she should allow her nails to grow long. That's the point. The point there, Rashi is saying that she should be able to do that. And when it says that God, Asa, made the firmament, okay, it just means he completed it. He completed it. V'lachein tafas kan lashon asiyah. And that's the reason why in this particular verse, where it's talking about Abraham and Sarah, it uses this expression of asiyah, shekolel gam inyan tikun, because it includes, it does, that's why it doesn't say bar-o, even though it has that connotation, but it uses the word asiyah in the sense of tikkun, of improvement, right? Or perfection, or some perfection in that sense, right? But essentially to improve. V'hainu, and that is to say, shemikodem lo hayu metukanim, that prior to as long as they were pagans, right, they were not perfected. They hadn't really completed the process of their creation. Vehem tiknum, and Abraham and Sarah were the instruments by which they fulfilled their existence, so to speak, right? By becoming believers. Veze yoter mechuvan, and this would be more. Mechuvan means, in this case, it means it's more precise. Milashon bria, from using the term bria, even though they said baro up here, right? It's better than using this particular root, sheyunach rak al yesh me'ein, because the word creation has the meaning of the creation, creatio ex nihilo, in other words, making something out of nothing. So, in the Midrash Rabbah, it's trying to explain the significance of this process, okay? But in terms of what Abraham and Sarah did, but the Torah T'mimah is helping us understand the precision of the language of the Torah here. The dok means essentially, I believe, it's basically means QED. Ve'ien od, and see further, ma shekatuv be'inyan zeh, regarding what is written on this particular subject. Baruch Perek Bamidbar, at the beginning of, Baruch Parshat Bamidbar, at the beginning of the Parsha of Numbers, the Pasuk, regarding the verse, Ve'ele toldot Aharon u'Moshe, and it says in that verse there, it says, these are the generations of Aaron and Moses. And I can just tell you, because I'm aware of what the point is that he's making, if it says these are the generations of Aaron and Moses, what would you expect to follow? Right? You'd expect to follow a listing of their children, right? Their descendants. And it doesn't say that. I think it gives a little bit of a genealogy for Aaron, and I think that's where it stops. And it says, wait a second, it just said these are the generations. And so the point is that because Aaron and Moses played such an important role in teaching the Torah to the Jewish people, it's as if, they actually brought them into existence, right? They made them. Ube Parshat Ve'et Hanan, and likewise in the Parsha of Ve'et Hanan, that's in the book of Deuteronomy, right? But pasuk regarding the verse Veshinantam levanecha, where it talks about lishan to teach your children diligently. I don't know the point offhand that he makes there, but other than it's possible, the idea that it's one thing to bring children into the world, and it's another thing to provide them with an understanding of their role in the world. And if, in fact, I am correct in saying that religion is all about trying to understand your relationship to the universe, this is what helps them understand. Uvesof Parsha Tavo, and at the end of Parsha Tavo. So, of course, Torah T'mimah is putting us on notice that this is not the end of the subject. There will be other things that we talk about regarding this. So, uh, anybody have any thoughts or questions you want to raise at this point? Otherwise, as you can see, we're running out of time, but I'll do a little bit more if you wish, if you don't have any questions at this point. Okay,
I'm good.
good. Okay, so going on, and it talks, let's take a look at this verse, right? So it says, the Lord appeared to Abram. He said, to your seed, I will give this land. And he built there an altar to the Lord who appeared to him. And now we get to the next verse, which is the one we're going to comment on. Take Mishan Hahara. And essentially, he pulled up stakes from there and he went to the mountain, Mikedem Levet El, on the east of Bet El. Vayet Orlo, and he pitched his tent there. Beit El Miyam, Beit El being on the west side, V'ha'ai Mikedem, and the city of Ai on the east side. Vayiven Sham Mizbech Lashem, and there he built an altar to the Lord. Vayikra B'Shem Adonai, and there he called on the name of Hashem. All right, so we'll do this, and we'll save the commentary for next time. Beit El, etc. Amar Rabbi Elazar, said Rabbi Elazar, Le'olam yakdim Adam tefillah letzara. A person should always make sure that they precede prayer before trouble. In other words, at least on the surface, before we dig deeper into this, right? That let's say, if you know you're going to have some serious problems coming ahead, you should pray before you actually encounter those troubles. Okay. How do we know this? She'ilmale hikdim Avraham tefillah letzara, that were it not for the fact that Abraham had preceded the trouble by prayer, and that's understanding Ben Beit El, right? Beit El was a place to pray. Uvein ha'ai, I was a time which will be explained in the Torah T'mimah. That was a city that was one of the conquests of Joshua, but they actually had great difficulty initially. I'll go into that in more detail next time we meet. But there's the tzara. Lo nishtayer. Had he not done that, there would not have remained mison ehem shel Yisrael. This is a biblical euphemism. This is an example of biblical type or rabbinic type euphemism. Sonehem means those who hate Israel, sarid ufalet, that not a single, there wouldn't have been a remnant or anybody left over. Meaning, and when it talks about Sonei Emshel Yisrael, it doesn't mean those who hate Israel. It means the Jewish people themselves. But it is the same kind of euphemism when you talk about the big C, because you don't want to say the word cancer. Okay, it's that kind of euphemism. So you don't want to say there wouldn't have been a single remnant of the Israelites were it not for that. You don't want to say that. So you say those that hate the Israelites. Okay. This is another example in the Bible itself when Pharaoh says, look at how numerous the Jewish people, the Israelites, have become. What happens if they join our enemies and leave? He doesn't mean leave. He means and kick us out. But he doesn't want to say and kick us out. Doesn't want to say it. So he says, and they leave, and the Israelites leave. What's the problem here? Not a problem. It's a problem if they kick us out. Now we're talking about a problem. But he doesn't want to say it. So he uses euphemism. So this is essentially what we're saying. And there's a lovely Torah T'mimah that God willing we will do, where he talks about this and explains it and does a very beautiful job, unsurprisingly, at explaining this. So let me find, okay, I've put in a little arrow here. I just want to save it. Oops, did that again. I seem to be incapable of, oh, sorry, now I've lost it altogether. Where is it? Sorry, guys. See if I can get back to here. Okay, I'm sharing. I'm looking for it. There it is. Okay. Oh, all right. I'm having difficulty getting up. Let's try it. There we are. All right. So let me just stop the share and I'll take care of this later. All
Okay.
right. Thoughts?
No, it's
For the record, anyway. Yes. Okay. All right. We
uh,
can.